Lesson 3.1, average rate of change from a graph and slope of secant lines. Unit 3 is talking about a definition of derivatives and tangent lines. We will continue this topic for quite a while because one of the major pieces of calculus is finding slope of curves. So before, in all your math classes, we've only done slope of straight lines, like we have y equals mx plus b. M was the slope, it's rise over run. Now we're figuring out how can we do that for something that's changing all the time. Number 1 says the function y equals f of x is graphed below. Plot a line segment connecting the points on f where x equals -4 and x equals 1. Use the line segment to determine the average rate of change of the function f of x on the interval between -4 and 1. This average rate of change, sometimes you might see capital AROC, average rate of change. An average we know is not always super precise. So that's what I need you to know is we're averaging the rate of change, but it's not a super precise number. And so they want us to find where x is -4. So we go on our graph, find where x is -4, and then find the point on that vertical line, which would be here. They also want us to do that where x is +1. Find the point on the graph, that would be down here. Then I'm going to make a line to connect them. We are trying to find the slope of that line. The easiest thing to do is to make two ordered pairs. This point is at -4, 4. This point is at 1, that would be -6. Always look at the scales they're using. And then hopefully you remember from algebra that slope, or m, equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The other thing you need to know is that there's a symbol for change, and it's a little triangle. So I could also say it's the change in the y values divided by the change in the x. And you'll see that at the bottom here, what they're wanting. And it's just delta is what that's called. It's just a symbol for the change in. And so I would go y2 minus y1, which would be -6 minus 4 over 1 minus -4, 1 plus, whoa, I'm already writing the answer, 1 plus 4. That would be -10 over 5, which divides to make -2. What they're wanting in the boxes is going to be the top number we got. The change in y's was -10, and then the change in x was 5, and that divided to make -2. From the graph, what that looks like is if I were to make a triangle here, and I'm going from a height of 4 down to a height of -6, think about how many you're going down total. That would be down 10. And then the run, or the horizontal movement, is going from -4 to +1. That's a distance of 5 units. On the back of that page, it says, what is a secant line? A secant line is really just a line that goes through a function at 2 distinct x values. And so you'll start to see this equation as well. To find the slope of the secant line, it says f of x2 minus f of x1. That is just really the same as saying it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So seeing this is really a y value of that second x value. For the function f of x equals -x squared minus 4x minus 3, find the slope of the secant line between x equals -7 and x equals -1. And so you have to pretend there's no graph down here. Your question is just going to be in words. And then what you have to think of is I'm trying to find what is the y value when x is -7. What is the y value when x is -1? That's the easiest for my brain to do and not use this fancy formula. And so all I'm doing is plugging in my x's here. So f of -7 would be a negative of -7 squared minus 4 times -7 minus 3. And f of -1 would be a negative of -1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 3. And I would just put those on my calculator and figure those values out. When x is negative 7, I got an answer of negative 24. And when x is negative 1, I got a y value of 0. Now all you're simply doing is plugging that into the slope formula. So your choice. You can say that it's f of our x2, so that'd be f of negative 1 minus f of your x1, which is negative 7, over negative 1 minus negative 7 or plus 7. And so what did we find y was? At x is negative 1, that would be 0, minus, what did we find y was when x was negative 7? Negative 24. And then that would be 6. So it's 24 over 6, which makes an average rate of change, or the slope of the secant line, 4. And so now here's the graph, just to match this up in your brain. At negative 7, we found a value of negative 24. At negative 1, we found a value of 0. And then we're just doing rise over run of those points.